welcome back for another episode of Seek and Discovery. We are here at the Outpost, and today's project is working on utilizing some of the materials on our land to be able to make some roads and things like that. So previously I took our tractor to the back 20 acres and started digging a pit where I found what is a resemblance of pit run. So it's various size rocks and boulders as well as lots of little debris. So today's project is we're going to take that hog panel and some finer mesh, this treated 2x6s, and we're going to build our own screen system so we can take dirt out of the ground with the tractor, dump the bucket through the screen system, and kind of separate all of the rock material from the super lightweight stuff so that we can reinforce some of our roads. So let's get started building the frame. So we've got, 96 3/4 basically.
That's 3/8, 48 3/8, so basically.
So let's see, that'd be here.
Yep.
And we're technically a hair longer than that, so I'm just going to offset it a hair farther. I suppose I should have grabbed the triangle. So remember, when you buy 8-foot material, it's not always 8 foot. Ours is a little bit longer, almost 3/4 of an inch longer, so we're just using that. So this is our center line. And then
Cut the board in half.
right?
Find your center point and then draw your 45 on it.
So this is 5 1/2. It's 2 3/4.
Yep.
And if I remember correctly, one of the fun things with this set is you can go like that. Put in a little mess.
Put your 45 on it. Draw your line.
45. Kind of like
Right
that.
down the center of it.
Put our earmuffs on. I don't know, that's pretty close. The tooth mark is on it. I would call it right there. Board's a little warped, but it's backwoods construction. It's not finished work. You gonna hold that end for me? Ready? Yep. And let's see how close we got. Set down. I think that'll work. So the board that we just cut is going to be the ends, and there's going to be 2 center supports on it. So the board down here will keep the base of our stand kind of perpendicular to the ground, and the top of it will be perpendicular to the frame. So you'll see that as it all comes together. Then we said this was the wettest and the heaviest. So that'll end up there. So now that we've got the frame laid out here, I'm pre-drilling some of the holes and then putting in leg screws while my dad is helping to hold it in place, and just putting that little spacer board on the bottom to try to get them as flush as possible. So when going into the end grain of a board like this, it's important to pre-drill so that you don't split your wood. It takes a little bit more time, but it's worth it in the end. So as you can see, we're getting it kind of finalized here, measuring out the spacing for those 2 center supports. Because ultimately, when you dump a bucket of dirt on here, there's going to be a decent amount of weight hitting that hog fence. So we want to make sure that it is thoroughly supported during that sifting process. So we're just getting these last couple of pieces in place, and then we'll put on that angled part on the end, and we'll be ready to start working on attaching the hog fence. So as you see, we tip it up here, ready to go, and pre-drilling a couple of those spots on the ends to get it to stay in place, and then ultimately can get the rest of the leg screws in. So I mentioned earlier we are using pressure treated lumber here, since this will be left out in the elements and come in contact with the ground as well. It's important to get that pressure treated if you want to last longer. So we're just checking the squareness real quick and getting these final ones in place. Once we get these attached, we're going to lay this back down on the ground and add that paneling on it. And these panels are going to be offset so that we don't have the full spacing on them, but ultimately we're creating a smaller grid pattern so that can sift out that finer material and really kick out those bigger rocks. As you can see, we're just test fitting here, and then we're going to go ahead and lay this down on the ground as we're contemplating exactly how to attach it. So here we are getting everything lined up and making sure that our overlap uses the hog panel as best as possible. If you look at the one on the right, you can see how the spacing is different at the edge, so we want to make sure those were opposite edges. And to get started, we just put in some screws with washers to hold the corners down so that we could get that second panel in place and ready to go. So at this point, we've got the two roughed on, and I'm going in with some metal strapping to give it a little bit more of a secure connection, because again, this is going to take a little bit of a beating with the debris and the dirt falling in it. So we just got the homemade screener brought down to the area where we're working on building a pit so that we can kind of harvest our own materials on the ground here to separate some of those bigger rocks from the smaller rocks and smaller debris. I've also got I think it's a 1 inch by 1 inch screening that can be added on top of that larger stuff back there, so that we do have the ability to really screen out the fine material. And ultimately the goal of this is to be able to produce our own pit run style material, so that as we're working on developing trails and some of the roads out here, that we have the ability to maintain our own road system without needing to hire out the material. So my dad's headed out to the pile right now in the UTV, while I'm running back to swap out that bucket. So yeah, let's go ahead and see how this homemade screener works. So with the help of Brian, we just got the bucket back on the tractor. So I'm headed back out to, I don't know, probably like the back 20, with the bucket in tow, meeting with my dad. We're gonna try out this screener and see how it works. Oh, I forgot to grab the fine mesh stuff. So we're just going to focus on running the bigger material right now, try to get some of those larger rocks. So I think the mesh material is probably like 2 inches by 2 inches, or maybe it's 3 by 4, because we took 2 hog panels and put them on top of each other slightly offset to make the opening smaller, to help with some of those bigger rocks and the medium-sized rocks, to really make sure those don't get included in there. So yeah, once we get out there, we'll switch the camera and we'll start running material. Oh hey, look, there's some rocks there. So in general, the concept works, but we probably need to lift the screen higher off the ground and then be able to get into it a little bit easier. So realistically, what it might need is to screen a bunch of material and then come back, move the screen, separate out the stuff, or again, give it a higher base and something to scoop against. Well, that is going to kind of wrap up today's episode. Proof of concept, the screener sifter thing does work. It separates out some of those larger rocks. We did not get a chance to try out the smaller screen to see how that worked. Even with the big mesh here, some of those roots in the dirt got caught, which kind of builds it up as well. So if we did a really small screen, we may have even more problems. but we do need some refinement and improvement. So one of the things is to lift the screener higher off the ground so you can process more buckets of dirt before you need to do anything with it. Also a better divider so that the rocks don't get mixed back in with the dirt that you just sifted. So we're talking about maybe raising the whole thing up either on logs or maybe getting a couple more treated 2x6s and then building some kind of a stilt frame for it and maybe putting some kind of a back wall to make it easier to separate the two materials so that they don't commingle once you've done the work of sifting them. So with that, if you guys like this style of video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button down below. If you've got any ideas on ways to improve this setup, please drop a comment, give us your ideas, let us know how we can make it better. We are learning as we're going. We're by no means experts. If there's other things you want to see as we continue to work on developing this property, let us know in the comments as well. So until next time, thank you guys for hanging out here on Seeking Discovery. Well, we are working on one of our newer projects, which is taking this new outpost property and kind of homesteading it and turning it into usable land. We'll see you guys in the next video.